Good morning and welcome to Mental Health Matters with me, Dr Audrey Tang. This is our office hours show where we talk about all things workplace well-being. My co-host is Judith Crosier, and today we are talking with Tana Macpherson Smith about her book, There's a Monkey on Your Shoulder. Now, this is a very important conversation because a lot of the times when we feel anxious, when we are faced with challenging situations, often we don't understand why. And we might be able to solve the problem, but we may not be able to get to the root. And Tana's work is all about getting to the root. So let's head over to the main studio. Welcome to Mental Health Matters, Tana.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
It's great to see you. Now, I know your book is There's a Monkey on Your Shoulder, but there is a monkey on our table. So please tell us about who this character is.
So Bert is the monkey that actually popped up in a charity shop about 8 years ago, after I'd already acquired quite a collection of monkeys, which are part of my teaching tool with all my clients. And I'd said to my husband, I definitely won't have any more monkeys. And then I walked in and he was just sat by himself on a glass desk. And I looked at him and thought, there's a reason why he's sitting there. But I said I wouldn't have any more, so I walked out. And then I walked back in again and I thought, there's a real reason why he's there. I need to have him. And actually he came home and has been such a piece of wisdom. And I now take Bert with me since publishing the book. I take Bert with me all the time. He sits on my shoulder, he comes in my bag. I write my books in a hotel and he sits in the seat opposite on the table for two.
I love that.
And the reason I take him is to invite conversation about mental health.
Yes.
And I have had the most extraordinary conversations at a Harrods Champagne bar with the staff behind the bar who opened up about their mental health concerns, with a man who walked past in the hotel and said, well, that's a cheap date. And I went, yeah. And then he walked past again, no, seriously, what's that about the cheap date? And I said, well, I've written this book, and actually Bert's to invite conversation with strangers about mental health.
Yeah.
And he went, oh, really? And what ensued was the most fantastic conversation about the fact that he'd had mental health problems since he was 10. He shared the whole story. He was almost in tears. He said, I haven't shared this before. He said, this is an extraordinary conversation. And as a result, we're looking to start a podcast series of conversations with strangers with Bert.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, that sort of brings me really nicely onto your book, There's a Monkey on Your Shoulder. What are the key messages in this book?
The key messages are that we are foundationally made from everything that creates an emotional response to us from the minute we're conceived, not just through childhood. So every single thing we respond to emotionally, whether it's fear, whether it's laughter, whether it's love, whether it's anger, feeling that you're not good enough, is concretized in the whole of our growing up. And the way that I see it and the way that I express it with my clients is that we all have a monkey on our shoulder, which is my metaphor for the inner voice that directs how we are. And that the monkey is there really to keep us safe, but is actually very misguided. And what he does is chooses, when we're most quiet at night particularly, to remind us of all the things that we're failing at, all the things that we're no good at, and our limiting beliefs, which so many of us don't realise we have. And the monkey knows what our beliefs are and will point out all the evidence for the whole of the rest of our lives that those beliefs are true. So the premise is that there are 8 teenagers, and we see from the outset that each one has a different monkey on their shoulder with a different, whole new personality. The 8 teenagers are gifted the opportunity to go to a personal development trip in the north coast of Scotland. They're brought together as complete strangers along with their monkeys. And all of them exhibit the kinds of emotional and mental health issues that I have experienced through 25 years of teaching and 10 years working as a therapist and transformation coach. So they've been bullied, they are the bully, they self-harm, they have real self-body image, they have grief, loneliness, a lot of the things that we see day to day in our young people now. And what they learn halfway through the book, the teenagers become aware that they have these monkeys and they think it's absolute rubbish. Yeah, right. But essentially, they start to notice their thinking and they start to notice each other's thoughts and saying, is that you or is that your monkey? And it takes time for them to acquire that comfort in recognising that there is a thought pattern that's going on. And it also, the book is really about showing that our imagination, for me, is the single most important tool that we have for healing. And it's incredibly powerful at transforming the way that we are. So it's a book about hope. It's a book about being really honest about talking about what mental health issues are doing, and recognising that we all have it in ourselves actually to step out of the path we're leading and choose something different.
I love your use of the monkey, actually, because in a lot of training they ask you to name that critical voice, and sometimes it can be name it as someone you don't like so you can tell it to go away.
Yeah.
Whereas actually use of the monkey I love, because certainly in Chinese culture the monkey is, there's nothing wrong with him. He's just a little bit mischievous.
Yeah.
He's just a bit cheeky. And we'll choose that moment to go and do what he needs to do. And I think that's really nice, because he's otherwise a very nice character.
Absolutely. And they all have, and I
love that.
I get all of my clients, whatever age, whether they're 5 or 25, to, I don't know, go on Pinterest or whatever and look at monkeys, because they'll find something that they identify with. And a lot of my younger clients will go and buy monkeys of their own. I often give the younger ones finger puppet monkeys with wooden heads. So it helps take the blame of where they're failing out of themselves and hand it to something else, which makes it a lot easier to cope with.
Yes,
and then you can start talking to the monkey and saying, I don't want to hear what you're saying. I don't want you to point out every time a friend or someone turns their back on me.
Yeah.
I don't need to hear it. And it's about educating the monkey to think differently, and in doing that it changes how you are.
Yes, and monkeys, of course, are very clever, so they can learn, and and it's not about rejection. It's a very lovely use of the animal. Your own professional journey is a huge part of this book as well. Do you mind sharing?
Yeah. I was a teacher for 25 years. Absolutely loved that with all my heart. I ran a boarding house for 12 years, so we had 60 teenage girls living with us as a family. So I've seen it all, been there with it all. And then I had unexpected surgery. I had a 10-inch tumour. That was very sudden. Had a hysterectomy, had another surgery a week later for a twisted ovarian cyst, and then went back to work just a few weeks after that.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I didn't have the physical strength to keep in place the mask that I'd worn my whole life, burying the loss of my mother when I was 7. She became quadriplegic when I was 2 and died when I was 7. And also episodes of sexual predation and adult bullying that had really impacted me, but I'd always just put on the mask of I'm there for everyone else. So being physically not right, I started to crumble. Took myself to Thailand for 2 weeks because I had to be away from work, and had therapy every day, an extraordinary experience, and that kept me going for another 6 months. And then I knew I was too angry to teach, and anger is not a familiar emotion. I've always left that for everybody else. I've always maintained I don't do anger. Anger was really coming up, so I took myself to an early morning yoga class in the hope that I would then be able to teach effectively. And came out feeling just as bad. And I was driving on a dual carriageway, and an ambulance coming towards me suddenly turned on its sirens and lights and shot past me. And it was as if someone had literally pressed a switch. I put my foot on the accelerator. I was doing 85, 90 miles an hour, and I was looking for a tree at the side of the road.
Oh my gosh.
And I have to be, it was nothing about suicide. It was not about taking my life, but the monkey on my shoulder said at that moment, if you are injured so badly that you are in intensive care, then they will understand the damage they've done. And I can only surmise who they are.
Yes.
The sexual predators, the bully, the people in my childhood who celebrated my extraordinary writing about loss and grief and loneliness and gave me A star, but never thought to ask me if I was okay. Last thing I saw was the tree in the windscreen. In my mind, I went through a whole crash in slow motion. But when I came to, I hadn't touched the tree. I've no idea how. All I can surmise is it wasn't my time to die.
Wow.
Because I wouldn't have been in intensive care, I would have been in a coffin. But I was about 200 metres down the road, having spun the car, utterly broken. And I was taken into a London psychiatric hospital for 3 days of assessment, and I didn't come home for 6 months. So, but when I was there, I met so many other ordinary people just like me, and I pulled threads on all of them, which is what I do naturally. I wanted to know how they came to be there, and it kept going back to childhood. And I'm not talking about people with obvious major trauma, but the little t traumas that mount up. And when I came out, I thought there has to be something that I can do to stem the flow of so many people struggling with mental health problems, and just made a decision that that's what this was all about, was that I have to find a solution.
Gosh, what a
long answer,
extraordinary,
sorry.
no, it's an extraordinary story.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. So the title of your book, Monkey on Your Shoulder, you have a lovely story about how you came up with the title. Can you share that with us?
It's actually a bit rambling how I came up with it, because the monkeys had become part of my toolkit.
Yeah.
From when I first started working as a therapist and a mindset transformation coach with children. And I started to realise the power of the monkey for children to really make change by encouraging the monkey to become their celebrator rather than the person who pointed out all their failings. But the whole book came to me on a train journey in 2 episodes. I was sitting on an empty train with my husband, which was very unusual. We were going into London, and a woman was reading a children's book opposite me really avidly. And I'm ashamed to say my first thought was, if that was my reading age, maybe I wouldn't be reading it here. And then I thought, no, actually, I'm sure she knows the author, because she was so into this book. And I had this sensation of literally that, through the window, and this downloading, I have to write this book about teenagers to do with Monkey on the Shoulder. And I turned to my husband and said, I have to write a book about teenagers who go on a development trip, and it's called There's a Monkey on Your Shoulder. And he went, good luck. And it was like, and for a year I grappled with, well, what is this book? Who are these kids? How does it all come together? And I couldn't work it out. And I was on another train into London, and I was exhausted, and it was packed, and I got the last seat. And I thought, if I don't meditate, I was going to a big event, I'm not going to function at the other end. I closed my eyes, and I literally, 8 kids downloaded, 8 monkeys downloaded with them, the fact that they were in the north coast of Scotland, that they had all these challenges that got bigger and bigger. And by the time I got off the train, I was electrified with energy, completely different to how I'd been when I got on.
Yeah.
And that was where I just knew that the monkey on your shoulder is the way this had to go.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Love that.
Yeah.
That's inspiration. That's true,
yes.
raw inspiration.
Yeah, it is. Gosh. So how do you hope that the book will support clinicians in their practice with young people, in particular young people?
Firstly, I hope they'll read it.
Yeah.
Because it really is helping people to make sense of their lives. And interestingly, just as an aside, I wrote this for teenagers with the full intention it would be read by anyone who once was a teenager. Okay. What I hadn't anticipated was that a whole group of 70 to 90-year-olds are reading the book and passing it between them.
Wow.
Because they're saying it's made sense of their lives, because nobody ever talked about emotions when they were teenagers. So for clinicians, it's about really helping young people, and although it's really for 11-year-olds upwards, the concepts I use with all of children from 5 upwards, and the same with clinicians, is helping children to identify that they have a voice, that it is a monkey, that it has an appearance and its own personality, and that actually what it's trying to do is to protect them. So, for example, a child who's been bullied all the way through primary school, the monkey really has 2 options in trying to protect them when they go to secondary school. One is to make them grow their hair long, fold it across their face, and to go into the shadows and try and be invisible so that no one will see them to bully them. The other is to make them face the world with anger and to be the bully and to overwhelm everybody else. And it's a form of protection. And once you start understanding that, you can help children to really see that they can think differently and they can choose where the pebbles are laid in their path to whether it's resilience and not just surviving but thriving, or whether they're actually continuing to lay pebbles on a path that could lead to mental health problems.
Oh, Tana, you're staying with us. We will be back just after this.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters Office Hours, where we're talking to Tana Macpherson Smith about her book, There's a Monkey on Your Shoulder. And it's a really fascinating discussion, isn't it? So you were a drama teacher, And obviously, through your teaching, you've seen the benefits of the creative arts for self-expression. What have you recognised about what young people still need in society today?
They really need permission to feel the way that they feel, because we're all so geared, especially through social media, that you have to put on this front to be somebody completely different.
Yeah.
And I think the arts in particular are really good at giving anybody of any age the opportunity to actually bring to the surface and bring outside what you're feeling deep inside. And we're very good at, I have clients from the age of 4 and 5 upwards who are putting masks on every day. They don't know they're doing it, but they're putting a mask on to hide the trauma of their parents' separation, thinking that no one else in the class is going through the same thing, when in fact half the class is got the same situation. And I think that any form of expression that helps to draw that out, whether it's creative writing, whether it's just putting huge marks across a piece of paper, which the main protagonist in the book does, and it's the only skill he holds his hand up to, is being able to really draw and express through that. Whether it's taking on someone else's personality as an actor, or just expressing through physical movement, makes a massive difference. And it's giving permission. It's also helping people to feel seen and heard. And as someone who has felt entirely invisible all my life, everyone else will tell me that's rubbish, but I have felt that that's my deepest limiting belief, is that I'm invisible, because no one saw the pain of loss. Having been in that position, I know how important it is to be seen and heard, and I think that's the thing that I probably do best with young people, is I literally look them in the eye and say, tell me really, how are you? And by sharing my own story, they know they have permission to do the same.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I bet you had an incredible classroom or drama room.
It was very expressive. There were lots of storytelling, but by storytelling you're connecting, because I talk openly about what I've experienced means they can then be vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
And if I'm authentic, they can be authentic. And magic happens.
Yeah, I can see that. So what do you notice about your childhood experience and experiences and their effect on adulthood? And as you kind of touched on before, not necessarily the really big traumas, but the small ones.
The little T traumas for me are the key. We can all understand that someone with major trauma may have mental health problems.
Yeah.
It's the stuff that happens every day. I mean, the other thing to realise is that even people with major trauma don't necessarily recognise that that's what it is, because that's all that they know. Yeah. It never occurred to me that going through what I did with my mum's paralysis and her never being able to speak to me, her never being able to hold me from a time that I can remember, and dying when I was 7, I never saw that I'd had a traumatic childhood until I started having to work on myself, and then realised actually the implications are huge. But it's just what my life was. I didn't know any different.
Yes.
But for me, it's every single thing that is said to a child of any age that creates an emotional response in them, creates part of their tapestry. And this is what I call monkey wisdom, how I explain it is that I see everybody as a tapestry. So I see you as the outline of who you are, Audrey, and you're filled with thousands of stitches like threads like stitches, and your inner monkey has a bag of crayons. From the moment you're conceived, not from birth but from conception, every time you have an emotional response to anything, so it could be that your mum's had a fright, it could be she's had a loss, it could be that she's panicking because she's ill, it could be that you're left to cry a lot as a baby, not because nobody loves you, but people are just busy. And I'll say to children, how would that make you feel if you were crying and they said, well, I'm alone or not important or nobody loved me? That's a child's perception. Every time you have that experience, your monkey will colour one of your threads according to that emotion. Mostly they'll say blue for that. Same child, potty trained, big family gathering, lots of fun, it's Christmas, everyone's having a good time, trying to attract attention because he needs the potty, can't find it, wets his trousers, everybody's, why didn't you tell us? And the monkey goes, I freaking tried. How does that feel? Not noticed, it's blue. Then they come out from nursery school and mum or dad for some reason are either talking to people or I've just got to finish this text to work on my phone. The bubble of enthusiasm bursts. They feel not important. These are tiny things. You're not going to remember these as an adult. but your monkey has stored them all. Yeah. And if he gets a big enough collection of a negative colour, a negative emotion, fear or anger or loneliness or abandonment or whatever it is, that then forms the limiting belief that that is who you are.
Yeah.
So for me, it was not being visible, was nobody noticing, because I never cried in front of anyone. So nobody knew how I felt, because I didn't let them know, and they didn't think to ask. And there were so many episodes when my heart was breaking and the monkey was colouring in the thread until I had a really big patch that said, "You're invisible."
That's such a good explanation.
It really is, yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So as the practitioner, and you can recognise that, how do you begin to have this conversation about telling somebody, well, this is not you, this is how because with us, we're adults. This makes a lot of sense. This is our work. This is our world. But for a child, I guess I'm sitting there going, no, I'm just useless, or I'm just
exactly
unloved.
by sharing this story and by talking about my own. And I give examples. So I have another deep-rooted belief that however hard I try, I'll always fail. Right. And I explain that to children, that I now understand that when I was growing up, I believed in my heart and soul that if I was the goodest girl ever, I knew Mum could never get better because we were told categorically. I now understand that my belief was if I was the goodest girl ever, when she died, she'd take me with her.
Oh, wow.
I was the goodest girl I could be. Brought the outside world to her bed, gave her love, was with her all the time. She died. Obviously, she couldn't take me with her. But for me as a child, I felt I had worked so hard and I clearly failed.
Yeah.
So when I introduce those kinds of my stories, children start to look at their own, and I pull threads on theirs and say, so what experiences have you had? You know, and I had a 12-year-old who was deeply suicidal when she went to secondary school because she felt she didn't deserve to be in this world because she'd been called fat so many times. So I explained to her that actually what had happened was she had encased herself like in a chrysalis shell that had darts on the outside with little flags underneath with the word fat. So every time someone had called her fat, she'd hung on to the word. But no one was doing it at secondary school, but she was carrying this still huge piece of armour with all this weight of fat on her back, and helped her to understand that it had a zip. Yes. She could actually undo it and let it go. So the monkey really helps even 4 and 5-year-olds get it.
Yes.
And very often I'll give them one that they can, and they create beds, you know, and they put them to bed and talk to them at night. I had one who took the monkey into school with her, very, very bright 6-year-old, loved books, but couldn't actually read. Thought she was a real failure because her other buddies in class could read better than her. And she was really anxious because of this. So I said to her, ask your monkey to help you. He's not there just to pull you down, he's there to help. She used to talk to him every day and say, we're going to read today. We can do this, help me to do this. And it took her 3 weeks. And she was reading at the same pace as everybody else.
That's incredible.
It's such, that's why I just think it's such a lovely metaphor to be using. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's a tangible one. You deal with very deep issues. You deal with suicidal ideation, you deal with loss, you deal with abandonment. You reveal a lot of quite big traumas. So as a practitioner yourself, how do you protect your well-being?
That's a good question. By the fact that I've done a lot of work on myself, by the fact that I recognise the signs. I mean, I am still triggered. And it can be actually just something on television. It can be something I see in the park, but also when parents talk to me or children talk to me. If there are episodes of real loss or abandonment, even seeing, gosh bless them, 4 cygnets alone in a place where there are normally 50 swans. They were on their own, they were bleating. No, I'm not sure if cygnets bleat, but they were crying. There wasn't a swan in sight. I literally was in tears because I felt that on a visceral level. Yeah. So I have to be really aware of that. I do kind of take breaths beforehand, before I go in. And I have to keep throwing it back and knowing this is theirs. This is not mine to own. I might be a container for their emotions, but I don't have to be a sponge. And I have to keep telling that. But if it does come up, and sometimes it does, and the tears will sort of prickle, and I'll say, I'm like this because I really get where you're at. I feel what you're feeling because I've been there too. So even as a grown-up, sometimes it's going to touch you.
Yeah.
And I think if you're just really honest about it.
Yes, and aware. I think that's all part of it. And sort of relating to that, what are some of the challenges for the practitioner should that trigger arise, and how can you protect or safeguard against it affecting the client in return?
I mean, it's really understanding that it is their stuff and you have to step back. And what I have found and recommended to others is, if you feel the emotion coming, because it's a really close connection to what you've experienced, is to really hyper-focus on the individual. So you're literally looking, really listening hard. You're looking at everything about them. You're noticing the colour of their eyes. You're noticing a blemish. You're noticing the way their hair is. You're focusing on their breathing, because by putting your attention somewhere else, it helps to regulate your own breathing.
Yes.
And in terms of, I mean, always when I come out, the first thing I do is go and get a huge gulp of fresh air, kind of shake everything off, change my state of where I'm at so that I don't go away wearing what they've come in with. But we're human.
Yeah,
you know?
it will
if
affect
we respond,
us. Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're unprofessional.
No.
We just are human.
Yeah.
On that note, we're keeping you, and we'll be back just after this.
Navigating today's workplace is tough.
Toxic employees, endless drama, a lack of motivation. We've all been there.
But fear not, we are here to help. My name is Leanne and I'm a chartered psychologist.
My name is Al and I'm a business owner, and together we dig into the scientific and commercial secrets behind great workplace cultures in Truth, Lies and Work.
A no-nonsense, award-winning psychology podcast brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. We explore practical strategies for building a great workplace.
We debunk buzzwords and bring you the very best advice around finding and keeping great people, from personality tests.
Personality tests they're mostly bollocks. I don't know what kind of language you do on your podcast. I don't know if people know this, but the man who wrote the Wonder Woman comics is the person who invented the disc.
When more flexible working became a norm, you no longer hurt your career prospects by being the one person who worked flexibly.
All the way to avoiding high turnover.
We recruit and promote people to managerial roles based on their technical skills, not their people skills. This is a very fundamental problem we have, which we haven't directly tackled.
From toxic-free cultures,
interventions for the individual are only half the answer. Systemic change is the other half.
to sustainable growth.
Thinking beyond just paying somebody a good salary, I think is super necessary now. We have to offer so much more than that.
We have got you covered.
So join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where we help you to simplify the science of work and build amazing workplace cultures.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters Office Hours. We're having a fascinating conversation. It's really insightful, very, very deep, actually. But I think that's why we have long-form content on this show. You can't talk about this in your 30-second TikTok. And I don't think it's safe to, actually.
No.
It's about understanding a lot of the theory and the thinking that's gone into your work, which I think is really important. Now, we're talking about the monkey on our shoulder, the monkey that can form the basis of a lot of our limiting beliefs, the monkey that can then, in fact, influence our behaviours, even if we don't want it to. A lot of the time, it's about retraining that monkey and making it work for us. But can the critical monkey ever be helpful? And the reason I say that is sometimes I have to give myself a talking to. And that works for me. Yeah. And so on the one hand, whilst I know we tend to say, well, how would you say it to a friend? And it's actually, well, I wouldn't say it to a normal friend. I wouldn't necessarily be critical to a normal friend, but to a very good friend, I will turn around and go, is that really, I will challenge them. And I expect that same challenge of myself. A lot of people who know me will find, and certainly as a coach as well, that if I'm nice to them, I really don't care.
Interesting, yes.
You know, really not interested. So I think there is a critical element.
Yeah, no, I mean, the monkeys are really powerful if you can turn around your relationship with them. And, I mean, I had a girl who was 16, beautiful girl inside and out, very depressed, very full of anxiety because she'd wet the bed her whole life. And it was interfering with her relationships with everybody. And she was retreating into herself because she got to the age where everyone was having sleepovers. And she wouldn't accept a sleepover, and she wouldn't hold a sleepover because she thought if one person finds out that I wet the bed, everybody will know, end of life. So they all started dropping her as a friend because she wasn't joining in. Well, she's boring. She'd been in and out of a children's hospital for 12 years. And they said to her, there is nothing physically wrong with you. In other words, off you go, there's nothing we can do. We did a session, we started talking about the monkey who's pointing out all the things that she's missing and all the fact that her friends are dropping her and she's not important anymore, so that she's deteriorating. And I said, let's turn this around completely. And imagine your monkey had a magic wand. I said, because actually the only person who can heal this is you. What if he had a magic wand? How would you feel if he could make it that you never wet the bed again? And I said, tell me 3 emotions you would feel. And she said, I would feel ecstatic, proud and free. So I said, do you know what those feel like? So we explored what I call better BFTs, not the BFG, but the BFTs, better feeling thoughts. Occasions where she had felt ecstatically happy and proud and free, so that she could immerse herself in those memories and feel the feelings. And I said, okay, so with the monkey, I want you to write out a sentence that essentially says, I'm ecstatically happy, I'm totally dry, I'm utterly proud and free. And to write it the minute you wake up 20 times every single morning, and 20 times just before you go to sleep when your brain waves are changing. But not while you're thinking about breakfast and your friends, but actually flooding your body with the physical emotions. And that's absolutely key. Because imagination to me is the solution, but your emotions are the thing that make it work. So she and the monkey, she said it was the hardest homework she'd ever done. She committed to it utterly. They did it together. And 4 weeks later, she stopped wetting the bed, and she's never wet the bed since.
I love that.
Goodness, yeah.
That is. It's about putting in the effort and using the monkey to put in the effort, I think. Because sometimes, and this will be my own monkey speaking, I know, but I find that you have to actually take action. You can't just sit there and go, I just need someone to hold my hand. Okay, you might need that for now, and we can do that for now, but if you will not do anything else from hand holding, what more is there?
Well, we literally have a choice.
Yes.
I know people who are in it feel life has thrown this at them and there's nothing they can do, but we literally have a choice as to whether we're going to allow this to be the trajectory of our life, or whether we're going to do the work to make the change. And we are literally what we think.
Yes.
And if we change the thinking, and it's magical with children, if you get them to step into thinking differently, you really can make transformation.
And sort of relating to that then, with the teenagers, especially overthinking is a massive thing at the moment, and not just teenagers, I think we all do it, but how do you make that shift? I love the idea of committing with the monkey to do it. How can you encourage someone who's maybe will give it a go and then, in a week, I just can't do this anymore?
I think it's about being really on top of them and inspiring people to want to make change, and and getting them to celebrate the fact that they did it for 3 days. That's a small start. And actually, if you do it a bit more, you'll start to feel differently. And I've got an exercise that I do, a physical exercise that I do with children that shows them the power of their thinking, that if you put your energy onto a particular point, it changes the physical structure of your body. And it's really simple, it's really fun, but it absolutely shows that if they put their mind into whatever we suggest that they do, and they imagine they have a magic wand and everything can change, they will start to see the shift. Teenagers, they can shut down and be really bloody minded if they want to. But if you get on side with them, even the hardest, toughest, will start to see. And in the end, they have a choice. They either want to work with you and try and make it, or they want to shut the doors and go, no, back off.
And that's okay too. I get it. I do, I do understand it. But when you're in the business of healing, and business and healing shouldn't actually be put in the same sentence, but when there's people relying on you sometimes, it can get very frustrating because it takes time.
I had a girl that came a couple of weeks ago whose mum didn't tell her she was coming till she was in the car. Oh no. She walked in, she wouldn't look at me, she just sat and looked at the wall, and I totally got it. And I said, you must be so mad. I said, I would be. You come to meet this random woman, you're expected to. By the end of it, she said, when I walked in, I absolutely had made a pact with myself. I wasn't going to say a word. And she said, I've told you everything. She said, you've really wound me up because I've told you everything. But, there's a way of manipulating in a way and inviting conversation.
Yes, no, absolutely. That's so important. Oh,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So obviously, you spend a lot of your time helping people and going through your own trauma. So what do you do and the monkey for your own well-being?
Nature for me is my safe space, and there's a huge forest near where we live. And sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, and I do anyway because of the whole ADHD thing of when I have deadlines and things, I can get really overwhelmed. So I'll just say to my husband, right, we need to go for a walk, and we'll drive to the woods. And the minute I step in there, it's just like, take it away. Water, I love water, and being with my grandsons as well, just putting all of my energy and focus in them rather than on everybody else. Because in this business, you never switch off, really.
No.
I'm always picking up pieces.
Thinking as
even
well.
On trains, even at bus stops. I'm stopping and having conversations with people, and then I'm picking up pieces. So sometimes I just take myself and sit by a lake and just be and breathe. And I also do quite a lot of tapping as well when things...
Yeah, we actually had a show, we broadcast a show about that very, very recently. We had Dominika Kalinowska. She took us through a whole tapping routine, and it's beautiful. Some people really, really love it, because I've done it with some clients. Some clients prefer the havening and then stroking, but try it.
Yeah.
I always say try it.
It's really calming, and for children it's something really simple, even just tapping on the side of their hand while they're trying to do some breathing gives them a focus that takes them away from the trauma that they're feeling at that moment.
And something they can do in the classroom. And
they can do it under the desk, they can go into the toilets and do it. I get them to little tapping routines, and they'll just ask to be excused and go and do that and come back.
Yeah. And I like tapping because it's like fidgeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not.
Exactly.
So it's a nice...
Fidgeting with a purpose.
Yes, it lets the energy out.
Absolutely is.
Brilliant.
Oh, I love that. This has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much. Where can we find out more about yourself, and where can we buy the book?
So my website is tanamacpherson.com, and also clearminds.org, which is my company that I founded in 2015. And the book is on Amazon.
Brilliant. Amazing. Thank you. We've got that with the show notes. We're going to keep Tana because we're going to hand Business Boost over to her. So let's head to Business Boost. Handing it over to Tana Macpherson Smith to take us through an exercise.
When I'm working with my clients, I'm always looking at how they'd like their lives to be different. And I'll say to them, and I use this term a lot, if I had a magic wand, how would you really want it to look? And I'll get them to home in on a particular aspect. So it might be that they would love to have a lot of friends. It might be that they would love to have the opportunity to travel. It might be that they'd like to have confidence with their academic work. And what I'll do is I'll say, just close your eyes for a moment and imagine that you've got a giant stick and you're drawing a huge circle in the sand around you because you're standing on the beach. And I want you to use your imagination, stepping into that circle and filling it with everything that would be true if the thing that you want most in your life was as good as it could be right now. So supposing that you want to have friends, which comes up a lot with my young clients, and you don't have any, but if you had friends, you would have plenty to select from. You would always feel welcome in the group. You would be having fun times together. You'd be invited to sleepovers. You'd be sharing parties with them. You'd always feel wanted and cared for and part of the group. And you fill that circle with everything that would make it as perfect as it could be. And you walk into it and you immerse yourself in how amazing that would feel. I want you to bring up the emotions into your body of excitement and joy and pride and warmth and love and acceptance and just being part of community. Then we step out of that and we draw a separate circle and you look at what is your actual current reality, what is the truth? And in that circle you put the hard nuts and bolts of what life is like now, that you feel in isolation, that your friends are short-lived, that they always want to play with somebody different. They've always got somebody better. They don't like what you've said. They are punishing in the way that they treat you. They are bullying in the way that they treat you, even though you'd like to think they're your friends. And you put everything about how you feel in that box. This is your current reality. Now, when you look between current reality and the vision, it's like standing at the bottom of Everest. And you feel, how can I possibly get from one to the other? And the simple thing is that we take steps. And all you need to do is find the first step to take. So for a young person who's struggling with friendship, that first step might be literally that I'm going to walk into school every day standing taller, with my shoulders back and with a feeling of expansion, because that alone will draw a different energy from other people and will draw a different attention. And if you're walking in like the person that nobody likes, you're bound to be closed in, your shoulders down, your head's down. People look at you and think, I don't want to be a part of that energy. So the very first step is just perhaps changing your body language. And when you've done that for a while, you then go back into your circles and think, what's my next one simple step? And it makes Everest much easier to climb.
What a conversation. I mean, my goodness, you've really phrased something we talk about a lot in a really different, accessible way. And that's been fascinating. And I think anyone watching this, I know I'm sort of thinking through a lot more things. It's transformational just chatting, which is really lovely. So thank you so much, Tana. It's been a real pleasure. This is the bit in the show which we actually really love. It's our favourite bit, I think. We reflect on all the things that we've learned. Now, we've learned so much from you, so I don't think we'll be able to talk about every single one. But Jude, what has stood out for you today?
There's so much, and I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of reframing what, I mean, you know an awful lot about the psychology world, you know, and I know a tiny bit, I'm learning, but it's kind of thinking of it in a different way. And when you came in, I was thinking, I wonder how the monkey kind of fits into everything, but it really, really does. And to sort of just for you to be able to enable somebody else to look at an issue in a completely different way, that however you do that, that's a kind of big takeaway, because it kind of just made me think, well, actually, something that you might think is a huge problem or something that I might take as a huge problem doesn't necessarily have to be. Even if I don't know how to approach it or deal with it, it kind of takes the problem away and makes it seem less huge, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So that's what it's done on a very broad scale. It just makes me think, well, actually, problems can be solved in all sorts of different ways, and you can look at things differently. They don't have to be this huge, massive, big cloud or whatever it is. You know, you can reframe it. And even if you need help from a professional to be able to help you to deal with it, the initial thought about whatever the problem is, you've enabled people's thinking to be different about that. I don't know if I've explained that very well.
No, I think that is. It's an accessible way to reframe thinking, which I think causes a lot of problems in therapy. I don't think everyone is able to do that. And to have actual, practical, physical ways of doing that makes such a difference.
It really does. You said it so much better than I did.
No, it's just summarising. That's all. You said it. Similarly, another example of exactly that is the tapestry. I love the idea of the reflecting on the things that have happened and asking yourself, well, what colour is that? Or what meaning is that? And how have I... So if I were to then look into this, am I very yellow or very red or very blue or very pink? And what does that really mean? And how does that come out? So that's a very accessible tool, which I've never heard before. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. It's a really good way of explaining it.
It really was.
Yeah. And on that's why we're going to give it to our guests to close. Please, can you give us some top tips for young people, or in fact anybody, to manage some of those anxieties?
Well, these 3 tips are for anybody, but I use them particularly. They work really, really well with children of all ages. So whether it's an 18-year-old, a 25-year-old, or a 5-year-old. And there are three things. So children anxiety is the most prevalent emotion that they come with because it's on top of whatever else is going on.
Yes.
There may be grief and anger and loneliness and everything else, but anxiety is what comes out on top. So a really simple way that I give to children of all ages is when they're feeling really anxious, and it might be they're going into an exam or just having to step into school, which for so many is becoming a real issue these days, is to do the double nose breathe, which is something they can do really subtly. So they're feeling really anxious, and I get them to breathe in twice, really deeply, one after the other, till you've filled your lungs as hard as you can. So through the nose. Hold it for a moment, and then I get them to visualise that they're blowing bubbles through a very thin straw into the bottom of a glass. And they've got to watch in their mind the bubbles coming up until they've got nothing more. And then just to stop for a moment, and then to repeat it another couple of times. And it literally calms the nervous system down and brings everything down, which then gives them room in their minds to think clearly about what next. And to see small children doing that, and really sort of, they always take their shoulders up to the top, and then... But the whole focus of that is taking away the panic that they're feeling about the way they're feeling. That's number one. Number two is a lot of children are anxious because they experience people saying horrible things. It can be parents who are saying things that parents might think are just off-the-cuff remarks, but actually really kind of wound the child. It can be name-calling in the playground, which is one of the biggest things. It can be anything that makes them feel scared, going into school, just the whole thing about leaving a parent, getting onto a school bus when you know there's all these big kids, brings up the anxiety. So I get them to imagine that they have a magic bubble. And the magic bubble is made of thickened glass that can't break, and you can step right into it. And everybody can see in, and you can see out, and everything carries on as normal, but it gives you a perfect shield. And if they're young, I'll say to them, you know, what are you really into? They might be into ninjas or unicorns or rainbows or footballs. So you've got a ninja bubble or a unicorn bubble, and it gives it an image in their head. And I say, right, the minute you get out of the car or off the bus or you walk through the school gates, imagine that you're in your magic bubble. And that when people say things to you in the playground, or you've got a really shouty teacher who's shouting at you, you just know that the words hit the outside of your bubble and slide off around the edge and onto the floor. And I first took that into a school where a whole pile of children who were like 7 and 8, new kids had come in from a very difficult background who were very aggressive, and the whole class was hypersensitive and anxious. And I explained this to them, came back the next week and said, did anybody use the magic bubble? All the hands went up.
Oh. Wow.
And one of the children said, I even used it, we have a very shouty teacher, and I even used it in her lessons. And I just let the words slide down to the floor, and I don't feel her anymore. And the teacher was standing behind her.
Oh.
And there was a little, like, red came up. And the headmaster said that he'd watched these children teaching the older children in the playground to have a magic bubble. It sounds so innocuous. It's really powerful. And the final one is actually for children or anybody who has separation anxiety, which can be so powerful and so harmful. And I know one boy I work with who lived next to his primary school, and he knew there was a hole in the hedge. And when it came to maths, all he wanted to do was be with his mum. Oh. And he started sneaking out and running through the hedge until it was discovered what he was doing. So what I said to him was, when you think of your mum, what colour do you associate with her? And he said blue. And I said, right, I've got a project for you and mum to do together. So I sent them to go and find pebbles that he liked the feel of, that had real substance, not tiny ones, but ones he could have in the palm of his hand. Go and choose half a dozen pebbles that really work for you. And then I said, Mum, take your son to a nail bar and let him choose the nail colour that best represents the blue that he sees as you. And then he went home and he painted all of the pebbles that blue. And he kept them in his pocket and in his school bag and in his desk and under his pillow. And every time he walked into school with that awful aching fear of leaving mum, he would grasp the pebble in his hand. She did a little ceremony with him, you know, filling them with love. And it made such a difference. Wow. And I've used it ever since. And kids, you know, say it really, parents saying it's giving their children real confidence to step off out knowing that they've got the loved one with them.
Yes.
without having to have them right in front of them.
Oh my goodness.
That's amazing.
Tana, this has been such a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much. And thank you, Bert, as well,
Yes.
for being here.
Good old Bert.
There's a monkey on your shoulder is in the show notes. Please do get that book, because I mean, this conversation I think has enlightened us so much already. Imagine what taking time and working through that book can do for you. From all of us here at Mental Health Matters Office Hours, have a healthy week.